Good day everyone. Today, I will give a short lecture to the pre-service teacher like me on how to identify, handle, and motivate learners with visual impairment and hearing impairment. So I will now tackle first the visual impairment. Before we formally start our discussion about visual impairment, let us first define the two words, which are visual and impairment. So when we say visual, it is our vision, while impairment, it's the loss of function or ability. So the term visual impairment is used to describe any kind of vision loss, ranging from someone having no sight at all to someone who has partial vision loss. So early identification is extremely important because early intervention will be most effective. There are different signs and identification if the person is visually impaired. So the first sign is not looking at others in the eyes. So for example, if you talk to a person, then he or she could not directly look into your eyes, he or she has a visual impairment. Second is holding objects very close or very far to see them. Next, continuously pushing or poking his eyes. Next is looking above or below of an object rather than directly at it. So last is feeling for objects on the ground instead of looking with her eyes. So visually impaired person uses his sense of touch instead of looking into the particular object. So as a pre-service teacher, there are different ways on how to handle learners with visual impairment. So the first way is give clear instructions as the students may misinterpret gestures and facial expressions. Second, consider the use of enlarged print worksheets. Third, printed materials need to be clear and dark. And fourth, provide contrast on any visual materials used. So, in this way, black and white is the best in providing contrast in any visual materials. Next is require less copying from the board. So, instead of always copying the board, as a pre-service teacher, let us increase our oral activities. So next is supplement visual material with verbal explanation. Allow more time to complete tasks and provide breaks to combat fatigue. Then second to the last, do not lower expectations. So as a pre-service teacher, instead of having lower expectations to our learners with visual impairment, let's have a higher expectations from them. We need to motivate and support their needs. We need to appreciate every accomplishment they get. So lastly, avoid italic or ornate script. We should always remember that lowercase letters are easier to read than capital letters because they have a greater number of ascenders and descenders, making them more visually distinctive. According to the self-determination theory, supportive teaching influences students' engagement to learn. Teachers of students with visual impairment have a very important role in helping students to overcome barriers posed by their visual impairments. So there are three ways on how to support and motivate learners with visual impairment. So these are providing structure, autonomy support, and involvement. So first is providing structure. So structure can be provided by offering clear guidelines, expressing clear expectation, and offering constructive feedback. So second is autonomy support. So teacher can support students' autonomy by providing opportunities for self-initiative. Autonomy support includes making students willing to learn without forcing them. So last is involvement. So teacher can foster students' relatedness by showing involvement. People are born with intrinsic need to be to be connected to others, and to experience warmth and care. So now, we'll move on to hearing impairment. So hearing impairment occurs when there is a problem with or damage to one or more parts of the ear. So there are different signs and identification if the learners have hearing impairment. So first is he or she has speech problems, inattentive, not following directions, and lastly, learning difficulties. So children who has hard of hearing will find it much more difficult compared to the children who have normal hearing to learn vocabulary, grammar, idiomatic expression, and other form of verbal communication. So as a future educator, there are different ways on how to handle students with hearing impairment. So first is face them when you talk. Second, talk slowly and clearly. Third, don't yell. So as long as you have their amplifiers on, you can speak in a normal tone. So fourth, minimize background noises. And last, use lots of pictures, graphics, and text levels. We should always remember that many hearing impaired students are visual learners. Motivating children in the classroom is an important key of teaching. There are different ways on how to support and motivate learners with hearing impairment. So first is, be aware of your students' history. As a future educator, it is our responsibility to know our students' background and what kind of environment he or she came from. So second is, improve their self-esteem. As a pre-service teacher, it is our duty to boost their confidence, groom their talents, and develop their full potential. And lastly, treat all students equally. So how? How can we treat our students equally? Just simply by giving equal responsibility. Together, all of these things will create a motivated child. Let us always remember that every child is an individual, and every technique needs to be adjusted properly as one sees it. So that was the end of our discussion. I hope that you already know how to handle, identify, and motivate learners with visual and hearing impairment. Thank you.